Here I have a Nitro Slash. Well, it used to be a Nitro Slash. This is what I converted into my muscle car. I'm still working on it, tuning it, but I have the sway bar kit. So the sway bar kit, I forget the company that makes it, but they come with these instructions. It's pretty simple. So I'm gonna go through them. I'm not gonna go through the instructions, but this is the number. Right, it's just a sway bar kit. You can find these online. So I have two. One of them is going to go on an electric two-wheel drive slash. This one's going to go on this one. And the reason why is with the softer springs in the front, it tends to sort of roll over. Now I fixed the trim, if you watch some of the older videos. So I have a Futaba receiver in here now, so I was able to adjust the trim. Before, it would just steer too much, hit this would break and it'd topple over. Now it's doing better. And it used to have some Revo springs. They look like this. They were too hard, so the front end would bounce instead of absorbing the shock. So sway bar is a solution. Now, in order to install them, it's pretty straightforward. What you will do is, if you notice the rear shock tower, there's these two holes right in here toward the middle. Let's see if I can get them closer into the camera. So it is this hole right here. That's one. And this is the other hole right over here. So you're going to be screwing in this aluminum plate. So this aluminum plate is going to go in here, and the holes go toward the bottom. That little channel, that goes toward the top. And the channel opening goes forward on the vehicle. So it should look, see if you see this, it's going to look like this. Just like that. And for these, you're going to be using these here. This is what's going to hold the sway bars. Now, the silver, these are the smallest, then blue, then red, I believe. Let me go ahead. Yep, then blue, then red. You do not have to use the same color front and rear. You can actually mix and match them depending on what it is that your needs are. If you want a stiffer front, lighter rear, which I'm going to look into a slightly stiffer front. So I'm actually going to be using the blue for the front and the silver for the rear. The rear sway bars are the ones that have this bend right in here. So that's the difference. So those are the two sway bars that we will be installing. Now the screws that you get, just make sure that you separate them. These are going to go to the front, so don't worry about those. The ones that we need for the rear are going to be the 14 millimeter, which are these right over here. So wait, actually, these look bigger. These are 14. I have a ruler right here. I generally keep one. Go ahead and confirm. No, these are 10. So 14. I was right. Actually, these are 15, but they're calling them 14. Millimeter threw me off. That's my excuse. So we're going to be using these. And you're going to place one of these in there, and it'll sit like this. And this is what's going to hold the sway bar in place in the rear. And these will go through here, therefore the sway bar will go here. And the sway bar sort of hangs down like this. And these will point. All right, so let's say the shock tower. So shock tower would be right here. The sway bar is going to fall like this. This is the way you want to install it. Now, you don't have to put the sway bar right away. Once you introduce the screws onto the shock tower, then you can worry about that. You will need a 2 millimeter driver for this. You do not need thread lock, as you're going to be threading into plastic. I'm going to go ahead and just start driving this in. Now these screws are quite long, and notice I have this right over here just because the setup. I'll install this at some other time. So if your Nitro Slash looks slightly different than mine, there's a reason behind it. Now, normally, I mean, this is pretty clean. I'm not worried about anything falling in the carburetor, but normally you would want to put a piece of tape or something on top of the carburetor just to make sure no particles get in there. And this is not lined up. Let's see. Give me a moment. There we go. One of the other things too that you can do is just remove the fuel tubing so that you're not hitting it against the heatsink of the engine. You could also remove the engine altogether. It's only four screws. I'm going to go ahead and leave it just because I'm being stubborn, but I strongly recommend that you remove the engine. The other thing too is you could remove the two springs that, the two screws that release the shock tower, which are these two back here. Then that'll give you more space, which is actually what I'm going to opt to do. If yours comes with Phillips screws, that's very unfortunate, just like mine. At some point, I'm probably just going to replace them all with hex screws. They are far better. But yeah, these are still good. They still do the job. So we'll go ahead and keep them for now. Let's see. There we go. The other thing too is be careful with your wire that goes from the battery to the receiver. You don't want to tear anything. There's plenty of slack in this one, so I'm not worried about it. And I accidentally screwed this one all the way in. So now I have to back it out. I'll place the sway bar in place. Make sure that the wire is over the sway bar. You can also remove the wire and just send it through the hole underneath the sway bar if you want. That wire is plenty long. I'm trying to move that little aluminum washer out of the way. Doesn't seem to want to collaborate. All right, there we go. Cooperated finally. So now I can go ahead and drive them in. Perfect. I drove that one in all the way. I'm going to drive this one in all the way as well. That moves freely. Perfect. Now I can go ahead and just mount the shock tower once again. Yep. Wrong one. Let's see. There we go. I'm going to put the shock tower back on. So the reason why I'm going with sway bars are to help the handling. What I need that spring mainly in the front, I'll be honest, to help the vehicle from toppling over. So I need more stability, especially in the front. Therefore, if there's a difference in the compression of the suspension when I'm turning, the sway bar is that spring that helps control that compression, the differential or the difference in compression between the two. And I'm going to be using it in the rear as well. Now, one of the things that you noticed with the Nitro versus the electric, the Nitro has the shock tower in the rear, electric has the shock tower up front. It's going to be the same installation, it's just going to be the other way. It's going to be backwards. But you're going to notice those holes in the back. that's where it's going to go. You may have to modify the body mount. I don't remember the way it is right now. But the shocks on the Slash 2-wheel drive are here in the front versus on the Nitro, they bolt onto the rear. But you probably noticed that there's those 3 holes really close together. That's where the sway bar, see if I can get to the camera, those 3 holes that are right next to each other, that's where the sway bar attaches. And in the rear, you have the same thing. You have those 3 holes right next to each other. So those 3 holes, there's some similar holes on the other side. That's where the sway bar goes. So again, electric, same thing. It's going to be pointing that way. It's going to be in the reverse. Now, you're going to have these 4 links. So these 4 links are going to go in the bottom. These are the ones that go on the sway bar, and you will be needing 2 of these spacers. Oops, there we go. Now, for those, we're going to be using these screws right here. These are, actually, it should be longer. So let me just double check real quick why I have these short ones, because according to the instructions, they are longer screws. Interesting, so it says 14, these were 10. Here it says 16, those seem to be 16. So the hardware is not correct. That's a good thing I have hardware. These are not 14. And there's nothing in the instructions that says 10. Oh, these are gonna go on top. Oh well, I have my box of screws right here, so we will go ahead and get the appropriate size. Let's see, so we need 14. And it's these right over here. I believe I'm just checking the size. That's correct, so we have them right there. All right. And this is going to go toward the sway bar. So for the front, well, sorry, I said the front, I meant the rear. For the rear, these will actually go in through here. Now you can go ahead and attach the sway bar here to the top, might as well, I'm already here. I'm going to set the set screw at the top, and I will just move the sway bar up. And I'm holding it to where the sway bar is relatively flush with this part here. And there we go. This managed to slip out. One of the things that I did notice about the sway bar kit is these do not move as freely as they should. Maybe they're backwards. Let me flip it. No, it's the same thing. Well, I'll install it the way it was. All right. And they are the same. All 4 of these are the same. Now, one of the things to note is there's a spacer here. This spacer is not in the instructions, so it's not depicted in the instructions. So I'm going to go ahead and install it with the spacer, and then I'm going to check to see if I actually need it or not. And if I need to remove it, I'll probably just do it off camera, because I'm just showing you here the basics of the installation. Here we go. All right, and that is flush. Well done. All right. So this is the way it looks, and this would just go right down here. And now I just have to install it in the appropriate hole, which I will be going, out of the 3 holes, I'm going to be going into the inner. So I'll be doing the inner for both of them. And for those, we'll be using these screws right over here. So these are the next longest screws, which should be the 16s. And if I place them on the ruler, these are 15. Oh well, we will be using them. And this is where the spacer comes in. So you use these little tiny spacers. They are about 3 millimeters. About 3 millimeters. All right. So you would put the screw in. Now normally I wouldn't assemble something in this position, I'm just doing it for the camera. And you would use a 2 millimeter driver, and then you just drive it into the arm, which, like I said, I will be installing it in that innermost hole out of that group of 3. So here we have the left arm, which on your screen appears to be on the right hand side of the screen, but it's the left arm. And now I shall continue on with the right, and I will be doing the same thing. So just place the screw through a little eyelet, and put that in there. And just drive it on through. Now, you do not want to necessarily go with the thickest sway bars all around, and the reason why is it'll make your vehicle handle as if it were on ice. That's the reason why. Sway bars are something that are very, very useful, but sometimes very misunderstood, quite misunderstood. That's something important. But that is the installation for the rear. So at this point I can go ahead and just install the front. Everything moves well. So if your suspension is compressing together, there should be absolutely no difference between the two. I still think I may grab some tubing or something to get rid of some of this gap, because I don't like the way the sway bar moves inside of that area, and there's nothing supplied here in this kit that helps with that. Now at this point, what I'm going to be needing is to flip the car over so I can show you the front. Now for the front, one of the things that you need to do is remove the spring. So this is the little bumper spring, so you will have to remove this. And the reason why is the aluminum plate in the front is going to go right in here. So that's going to be this plate. So notice the sway bar is going to fit here. This is the little channel that will go in here, and it faces, let me see, this way. So the channels are going to be toward the rear. That's the front of the vehicle. Now unfortunately, these are Phillips screws. I'm going to go ahead and just put the Phillips screws in there for the bumper. I should replace them. Then they will come out through the other side. This is where this mounts. Right in here. I'm just going to push those screws through. All right, and I hope you can catch on the camera, but the screws are right in here. And then you just place your spring and you tighten the spring, and it will push your bumper out probably about 2 millimeters, but it's not much. And the whole system, this is very flexible, so it will not be an issue. Let me go ahead and flip the vehicle. It'll just be easier for me to access this. Now the installation on the Nitro Slash and the regular Slash will be the same for the front. So So it will be identical. Now there is a difference between this, say, Nitro Slash, like I said, I converted into my muscle car, and a regular Nitro Slash or a Slash, and that's that this one has a banded front end, because I needed to make it narrower so that it would fit the body. So on this, I'm running a 1968 drag car body on it, which I think looks amazing. There it is. Now I'm not going to put these screws here yet. I'm just going to do that off camera because I'm still working on some things. But let's go ahead and place this here. We'll place those there. We'll move everything off to the side. These links will go in here, but you have to remove your shocks because you will be replacing that screw with a much longer screw that is provided with the kit. It's this, I believe they're 26 millimeter. 26 according to the manual. You will need your 2 millimeter driver for this. Now, I'm going to go ahead and grab this here. All right, these are straight up and down. And I will place the screw through, and then I will need to grab a spacer. Grab one more of these 3 millimeter spacers that will go in there. And then this simply goes right in here and also holds your shock. And you just go ahead and tighten that up. And that is it. Now remember, snug is all you need. Do not over tighten, mainly because you can damage the arm. This is just plastic, it's going into plastic. All right, here we go. We'll grab the other one, put the spacer, remove that screw, and then install this one. You're gonna have, all 4 links are the same, there's no difference between them. So keep that in mind. At this point, I'm not sure if the front one should be shorter or not. And I say that because in the instructions, none of them are showing the spacer. So the spacer does not appear in the instructions. There's a few brands that make sway bar kits for them. One of the things I do like about these 2-wheel drive sway bars as opposed to the sway bar system on the 4-wheel drive is they're longer. All right, there we go. These actually needed to go the other way. So these have to be facing the front. So these here, these need to be facing forward. This needs to be facing rear because the sway bar is actually going to be mounted at the front. That's all I'm doing right now. It's an easy fix, but if you pay attention the first time, right, you won't have to fix anything. Here we go. Sway bar would go in here. Now keep in mind that these are shorter arms because they're banded arms. So I'm going to go ahead and mount this and see where this would go, as it would have to go slightly in. So I have to hold this. So given that I have the banded arms, I'm going to go ahead and just place it here. I'll deal with this first and then I will deal with this last. So I will need these two right here. And then the screws that I need are 8 millimeter. Now, these here, these are too short, but these are about the length I need. I'm gonna go ahead and grab these. And for these, I will be needing a little tiny bit of thread lock because they are going into that aluminum bar. 2 millimeter driver. I think the front one will fit better than the rear. I'm not going to tighten it fully yet, although I could. I'm going to go ahead and set the rear first. think I said set the rear first. I meant the other one first. I apologize. Snug is all you need. Do not over tighten. And that is it. So this is obviously not on yet. I'm just trying to get a feel for how the suspension would work. And if I were to tighten this here, that should... All right, let me see. We'll go ahead and take about 15. Actually, this is a bad idea because the arms sort of push toward the rear, so I'll let you know how much I'm going to take off. It'll probably be approximately a centimeter. That's 11 millimeters, so I'll set this at 11 millimeters. And I successfully moved this, so let me go ahead and tighten this a little. All right, here we go. You can also use calipers, that's 11. And I'm gonna go ahead and flip the vehicle and do the other side. Now, if you are just bashing, it may not seem as if a sway bar did much, but it truly does do quite a lot. If you ever took your vehicle to a track, slapped a transponder on there and did laps with and without, you would notice a difference. But bashing, keep in mind that in racing a second is a long time. Bashing, right, second, who cares? But that is the full installation. I mean, I still need to do this, but the front, this is all you need. So just to show you, again, bumper, go ahead and redo the 2 screws right down here. Separate the spring, install this in between, it's just sandwiched there. Go ahead and screw those in. Remember that the channels go toward the rear, this plate goes toward the front. Those 2 screws here with those countersunk spacers. 3mm spacer between the link and the suspension arm. It appears that those spacers will stay. Okay, everything's working. So as you can see, as I push this, this other one wants to react. It's not supposed to move this, it just creates more spring tension to the arms. And if both of them compress at the same time, then the sway bar doesn't do anything. That's the way it's supposed to work. And then for the rear, on the Nitro, you're going to screw it here on this side. There's the bar, right? The countersunk spacers with the screws here. 3mm spacer here at the bottom, similar to the front. Nitro, you're going to install it through the front. Electric, you're going to install it toward the rear since the shocks are on the front. And your shock tower is also forward instead of farther backwards. Or, yes, farther back. But that is it for the installation. So I'm going to finish it up, do a little more tuning, install this, and then take it out for some more driving. If you're watching this just for the sway bar installation and the Nitro Slash, thank you very much for watching. If you are just curious as to how my build is going, I thank you a lot, and I will have an update once I finish the car to a point where I'm satisfied. I will have a video talking about all the parts that I used to make this muscle car work. Thank you all very much for watching. Please subscribe if you have not, and I'll catch you in the next one. Also, comment below.
Oh, my hair! My car! My rod!